Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov Chess channel and welcome to a spectacular game from the Computer Bullet Chess Championship in 2024. We have here Stockfish 16 against another top engine Berserk in a crazy Kingside move order against the Benoni Defense, and I think in AI chess the Benoni Defense is simply not working anymore, especially when Stockfish is playing with the white pieces against the Benoni Defense. Not only Stockfish is winning the games, Stockfish is simply dismantling, destroying, really splitting the Benoni Defense into tiny little fractures. How the fish is also attacking in this game is really epic, it's really crazy. And today, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we're covering the so-called Kingside move order, which is a little bit different than a previous game that we have covered a couple of days ago. In the game a couple of days ago where Stockfish played also with the white pieces, we have covered this line. After knight to f6, one of the most flexible ways is to play, of course, knight to f3, but in that game c4 was played, c5, d5, and now after e6 Stockfish went to the so-called pawn storm variation after move f4 and played the Taimano variation with the move bishop to b5. If you're facing maybe more these types of positions, these types of structures, here's the link to the video, please check it out. Maybe there's also something for you in the preparation against the Benoni Defense. But today it's a little bit different because after move d4 and c5 that was prearranged by the organizer and d5 by the fish, after knight to f6 the prearranged move order was now the move knight to f3. It is a sort of a Benoni-Indian defense with a different move order. Still we are in Benoni structures, but now you cannot play, of course, the Taimanov variation with the move f4 that we have seen previously with the move e4 and then bishop to b5. But don't panic, here you see also a beautiful attacking idea how to dismantle also the Benoni with this knight to f3 sideline. So after move g6 by Berserk, here Stockfish continues with knight to c3, we have bishop to g7 and now e4. The good also part about this knight to c3, knight to f3 setup by the fish is here that you're keeping a certain flexibility to play the move c3 if necessary. I'm not sure how to explain you this, but in some lines black could maybe try to reroute this knight to b4, and if you have already played, for instance, the move a4, if he gets the knight on b4, sometimes the knight is very unpleasant to handle there. So that's why this knight to c3 method is very good, because it gives you, after potential, just imagine the knight on b4 and you have exposed yourself already with the move a4, it gives you a certain flexibility later to play even knight to b1 and simply kick away the knight from this active square. So it's a little bit more flexible, this approach that Stockfish is showing us. So here after move d6 by Berserk, we have bishop to b5. Again, this idea to somehow slow down the potential progress of blacks, to somehow slow down the development of the black's minor pieces. Here on the queen side, we have now the move a4, very important move. If you don't play that, if you cancel immediately, then black is getting his goal. Here he gets a6 and then he gets b5. In some lines even b4, he could kick away your knight that is protecting the e4 square. So don't allow him, of course, this expansion on the queen side. So that's why after knight from b to d7 we have now the move a4. And the cool part is that I played many times this position myself, also on leeches, also in classical games. This is a very beautiful video for me because I wanted to show you really the best approach in one of my favorite lines against the Benoni Defense. So after move a4 we have castling here by Berserk, castling also by the fish. Rook to b8, which is a certain preparation to play a6 b5 again, because of course the rook is supporting the potential progress here. Now comes a very important move that I also play. Very important move now happens. It's the move rook to e1. I'm not saying you will lose the game or something if you don't play rook to e1, but it gives you unnecessary positional problems in the later stage of the game if you don't play this move. If you continue with bishop to f4, seems also very cool, but then after a6 you don't have such a good square again for the bishop. After the bishop to d3, the bishop is not really on the optimal square, it's simply blocked out a little bit by its own pawn. Knight to g4 could happen, knight to e5. Here black would, I think, cement the position around the square e5 and could have a solid game. Bishop to e2 here, for instance, is also not working. If you want to, I don't know, escape from this potential attack of the knight on e5 against the bishop on d3, then actually black can play b5. And as we mentioned in the beginning, you don't want to allow your opponent the move b5. Now it's working because after something like knight to b5, you see one of these pieces gets deflected from the pawn on e4. Even if you play, of course, bishop to b5, then of course knight takes e4 is even worse here for white. Knight takes e4, rook takes b5, and black is even better here. So that's why rook to e1 very important, because after a6 it gives you a beautiful square for the bishop to escape. I'm really liking this game because this position I played so many times, but of course I cannot play like the fish. I cannot play 5% like the Stockfish engine is playing, but I will use a couple of methods that Stockfish will show us here for sure. So after move bishop to f1, now you see b5 is not working, because now the bishop is not standing in the way of the protection of the pawn on e4. After something like a takes b5, a takes b5, now we can play, and now of course knight takes e4 is not working. The rook is protecting that, although it's a little bit strange maybe to have your bishop here on f1, but the bishop is waiting a little bit here in the game, will then afterwards come, of course, into the game for sure. So now comes this common idea that also we have talked about already in this game, knight to g4, with the idea to fix the position around the square e5. It's a common idea, it's a common method in the Benoni defense, this dark square grip, to simply keep the position on dark squares compact, to somehow really have a solid position in the center of the board. So here Stockfish continues with h3, knight to e5. Still we are sort of in my game. I played again this position so many times. Now knight to d2 with the preparation to play the move f4, and now comes, I think, the first really critical moment of the game where black has basically two choices. You can play like the Berserk engine, the move knight to f6 seems tempting, or in some lines I've seen many times this move g5. I played also several times against this idea to play g5. Again, this idea to have this dark square grip, not allowing any progress by white here on dark squares. If f4 happens, of course, by white, then this knight from e5 gets kicked away, and in some lines, if you don't react here with f4, you see the knight gets even trapped. The knight doesn't have good square, so that's why this f4 is a very already dirty trick against black setup. So let's see now this sideline with g5. This wasn't played in the game by Berserk, but I think it's a position that we have to solve. And now you have to know also here the best continuations for white. So after move g5, a5, very important move to not allow again this b5 move. If that happens, if b5 or b6 happens, we simply play en passant or take out the b6 pawn immediately. But notice after move g5, black is now the weak square on f5, and basically what you're trying to reroute somehow this knight, maybe knight to d1, knight to e3, knight to f5, or one of those knights you try and get to f5, where it's of course the main structural weakness in black's position. And of course black would eventually try with e6. As I said, this wasn't played in the game, but I think we should learn a little bit theory here. After move e6, we simply play rook to a3, and that's a move. Now we are, I think, out of my game. I didn't play so often this rook to a3 idea. I only started to play it when Stockfish introduced this idea to me, and I've played now recently a couple of Lee chess games with this rook to a3 idea, then to reroute the rook here on g3. Now I think we're simply out of my game. Now I cannot, of course, calculate everything like the Stockfish engine. So look at this. After rook to a3, and after e takes d5, you play knight to d5, and now you get the rook on g3. I think this is a beautiful position for white. I think you have several attacking chances, even with h4. Now knight to e3, knight to f5 is coming, knight to f3, maybe knight to h4 in some lines. So now suddenly I think all of the white pieces are breeding. The bishop can be included even on light squares into the game. So many options. I'm not showing you now in the game what happens if that happens, but I think if you get this rook on g3, this should be a perfect position for you. But in the game, instead of this move g5, here Berserk tried knight to f6. We have a5 by the fish again, simply neutralizing again the threats on the queen side. We have queen to c7, rook to a3 again, this rook lift idea. This signature by move by Stockfish, we have talked about this signature move many times when we analyze Stockfish games. Whenever the rook lift is coming, you know that this rook will be special. This rook will be the monster in the game. So after move rook to a3, knight to h5, we have now knight to e2, controlling of course the f4 square here for black. Bishop to h6, and here Berserk tries a very decent idea, I would say, and I think in human levels someone with the white pieces could crack here, but not of course Stockfish. Stockfish is sensing the tactical and positional problems in the game and of course calculates them and now finds simply the optimal solution of this position. Plays now simply king to h2. Improves a little bit the position of the king. If something like, I don't know, knight to f4 happens, then Stockfish wants to have the ability to play the move g3, and then we have a good protection of the h3 square. So king to h2, the first really beautiful, really positional move by Stockfish 16. Bishop takes d2. Here Berserk calculated something, but didn't calculate enough, because as we said, the fish is the tactical monster. After bishop to d2, knight to c4, it seems so that here Berserk gets simply the dark square bishop back, because it's very risky like this to give up your dark square bishop. That's your main protector also of the king, we should say. Not only a great attacker, the dark square bishop of blacks is in the Benoni defense, is also the key defender in front of black's king. If you lose this bishop, you could have really many positional problems in front of the king. But Stockfish says you gave up now the dark square bishop. It seems so that Berserk gets the bishop back because the rook is under fire, but you can guess what the fish is doing. The fish is not reacting to any of these attacks. So, as we said, when Stockfish plays this rook lifts, probably this rook will be sacrificed. So that's why Stockfish plays now the amazing knight to g3. This is now the most brilliant idea of the game. Knight to g3. Let's see now options. Here in the game, of course, Berserk tried knight takes a3. But let's see now what happens if you, for instance, play knight takes d2. Then after queen takes d2, you're trying something like knight to g3, then rook to g3 is kindly, and after b5, okay. Finally, black has this b5 goal. Finally, black managed somehow to push it through, to somehow get this main strategic goal that basically black prepared through the whole game. But now it's not working because white is much faster. f4, look at this. We can even leave the a5 pawn hanging. We simply push forward f5. We get the queen into the game. You're trying f6, queen to h5. Look at this. White is much better. We'll simply include also this other rook into the game, maybe even the bishop. So I think the position is collapsing here. You crack simply here around the square g6. You're trying maybe g5, then h4, and similar stuff. I think after a couple more moves, black can resign. Even if you try here knight takes g3 instead of knight takes d2, then of course bishop takes c4. We first take out the knight. You have to retreat. But now you see you didn't gain anything. Now f4. Rook to g3, g4 is going to happen, then rook to g3. You have lost the dark square bishop. Now with the bishop here, I think again white's position should collapse, especially because of the dark square problems in front of the king. So this line is not working. So that was our analysis. If black after knight to g3 doesn't take out now the rook. So that's why here knight takes a3, played by Berserk, but now Stockfish plays knight to h5. What should you do? If you try here g takes h5, in the game knight to b5 was played, but let's see also options. G takes h5 simply exposes the king too much here. Then we simply, of course, take out this one. You're trying maybe h4, the queen is coming, you're trying to escape. We play e5, now rook to e5. Look at this, you're trying f6, even bishop to e5 is working. You cannot take because of the fork. Bishop is coming on d3. Again, I would say the position is collapsing simply here for black. So let's see different options. Instead of this move g takes h5, you could maybe try knight to c2. Seems also tempting, but after queen to c2, g takes h5 again. Again, we attack the rook. Black is trying maybe somehow to keep the dark squares protected, but now we get the queen. Black has to play f6. We take, and now b4 would be the line. That's, of course, again, just a Stockfish line. Who would play, I don't know, b4. b4 is very aggressive. So many of us would even try to deliver check, but black can cover. Actually, the idea is after something like c takes b4 to deflect the queen from the defense of the king. For instance, black takes. Now we attack the king, and now after a couple more moves, black doesn't have so many good moves. There is this threat of rook to c7, and there's nothing that can be done. If you try queen to f2, then this one is working. We get the queen here, rook is coming. You're getting destroyed in a couple of more moves. So after queen to e7 and rook to c7, there's simply no good defense. You can just, I don't know, sack the bishop or something. Game over here for black. So that's why after knight to h5, you see g takes h5 is not working, knight takes c2 is not working. So that's why after knight to h5, knight to b5 was played by Berserk. Stockfish continues, of course, with bishop to h6, queen to a5. We have now another rook lift. Stockfish is now including a new rook into the game. Now three pieces are dancing simply in front of black's king. We have f6 again. Berserk is trying to keep the dark squares protected somehow. Rook to g3, obviously by the fish. Bishop to d7, and now f4. Now the pawns are marching, many attackers here. Queen will eventually come into the game. Bishop can be also later included. So now 3, 4, 5 pieces are simply neutralizing here black's defense on the king side. We have now the move f5. Berserk again tries to keep the position locked. Is saying also, if you please take out my rook here on f8, just get rid of this dark square bishop. But of course Stockfish is saying no, I keep my dark square bishop on the board because actually it's now the best piece simply on the board. So now we have e5 by the fish. If you try d takes e5, then of course f takes e5. You're trying maybe, I don't know, to get the knight. Then this knight is coming. Look at this. We finally take the rook. This one is coming. Look at this. This is just line that one line that I'm showing you. So of course black doesn't have to play the game like this, but I wanted to just show you maybe just a beautiful tactical line that could have happened after something like d takes e5. But you cannot play that because these two mobile pawns are simply too dynamic here in the center of the board. So that's why I remove e5. We have queen to b4 by Berserk, c3 by the fish, queen to d3, and now c4. A very cool move, because if you play here knight to d4, then actually the queen gets trapped. Look at this, really wild stuff. So that's why with the move c4, Berserk had to play knight to c7. But look at this, how the pieces are standing here in black's position. All of them really on passive squares. The bishop on d7 bad, knight simply far away from the action. Really with e6 we can lock the position further. Stockfish continues here with an attack, bishop to d3, queen to d4, and now with e6. I would say here really the game is over for black. Berserk tried somehow to battle. If you tried, for instance, bishop to e6, then again d takes e6. Here Berserk tried knight to e6 to keep maybe here the light for bishop on the board, but now Stockfish continues the pressure. Berserk retreats, and now bishop to g7, attacking the queen. Look at this. The queen doesn't have so many good squares. e5 has to be played here in order to keep the queen on the board. We have now f takes e5, a rook from b to e8, and now Stockfish plays a beautiful e6, allows here a rook takes e6, but now Stockfish is saying, now I'll get my queen on dark squares into the game. You have to escape. Queen to h4, here by Berserk, and now finally Stockfish took after bishop to f8. Here of course white is up a whole piece, whatever you take. If you take of course the bishop, then white keeps the knight on the board. So that's why here queen to h5, but now bishop to h6, a5, bishop to f4, and now Stockfish I think has here completely winning game. Attacks simply all of the pawns on dark squares. We have now bishop to c5. Really the position is now really collapsing here for black. If you try here f4, and then of course rook to f3, you're trying something like this with take, and again game over here for black. After bishop to c5, bishop to c8, Stockfish is indirectly hitting the queen, queen to e7, and now c5. Good move, keeps of course good spaces here on the queen side. This pawn is supported. You cannot play b6 and connect the pawns, but this is, we can agree, I think, completely lost game for black with down a piece. Bishop to e6, Stockfish gets the queen into the game again. Tries to maybe even somehow get a battery here. So far it's not possible, but to somehow deliver check on g7, b5. Now comes this idea, you see, very bad situation here for black. Bishop to f7, rook to e3. Here Berserk was forced even to give up the queen. The queen is coming now into the game. Stockfish simply pushed the pawn further, promoted to a new queen. Of course there were possible different lines, but after queen to f7, it was a beautiful checkmate with a beautiful queen and bishop's activity. So great game, great kingside move order. I really like this line. As I said, played it many times in blitz games. I'm losing, of course, also some games. It's not the point about that, but I think there are a couple of principles, couple of strategies that you could apply in your own games against the Benoni defense. Especially this rook lift idea is very common. It's very pleasant. I played it a couple of times, sacrificed even in some games the rook on g7 and similar stuff. So it is a dynamic variation. I think there's something for you if you, of course, maybe have problems against the Benoni defense. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the kingside move order. If you want to see more beautiful, spectacular AI chess, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link of our playlist. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.